Don't know about you, Ramon, but one of the things that really guards my goats is when company bastards try to tell me what I must and must not do with my life. So, with that being said, that the news that came out the DA on the 10th of July caught my attention. The DA pushed out a notification that the NHI the NHI bill has recently gone through the High Court, and key parts of it were deemed to be unconstitutional. So, just to read a little bit about it, it says, in a huge win for doctors and the healthcare sector at large, a recent order handed down by the Gauteng North High Court declared sections 36 to 40 of the National Health Act unconstitutional. These sections relate to certificates of need, which force doctors to apply for permission before they can open a practice. The High Court referred these sections to the Constitutional Court for consideration. If the Constitutional Court confirms the High Court's order, those sections will be declared unconstitutional and unenforceable. And then they went on to basically say, because of this, they've said that they want the government to pause the NHI bill until the Constitutional Court has decided on this matter. And if it does get decided, then it basically makes the NHI bill unenforceable and useless because they can't basically tell people where they can and can't work. I didn't read the judgment. I know you have. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's important for people to sort of understand. Solidarity spearheaded the court case against these provisions in the Health Act. So the certificate of need provision was basically, if you wanted to be a doctor, you need to get a certificate from the health department, and then that certificate will tell you where you're allowed to work in South Africa. And obviously, Solidarity saw this. They know that it's an essential element of the NHI. This was like the lead up to the NHI. And therefore, it is definitely unconstitutional because you are violating several constitutional rights. So, what the DA is referring to is a court case we have right in front of us. If I can get the correct thing up. My apologies, everyone. There we go. So, Solidarity ran with it. And importantly, the respondents were the Minister of Health, the President of the Republic of South Africa, and the Director General of the Department of Health. Excuse me. And I want to go through a few things with you who are watching, where basically the provisions in terms of the Health Act was like, as we said, a certificate of need, and every healthcare establishment, agency, healthcare personnel who are prescribed health practices must obtain a certificate of needs before they can open their own sort of practice or work in a material way. So to sort of consolidate what the judgment says, it basically, this certificate of need scenario violated several constitutional rights, like the right to work and the right to do a few other things. And in and of itself, that's very important. And I think that sort of ends the NHI. But what is most interesting in the judgment, if you go to page 9, the court was actually quite bewildered that the state, the respondents, didn't put up a fight whatsoever to try to defend themselves in the High Court. So I just want to quickly go through that with you. Like the respondents, which is the President, the Minister of Health, and the Health Department, they basically have unaccountably refused to participate in this court case. So they were aware of the proceedings. Solidarity sent letters to every single person under the sun. The respondents did not respond to any of those letters, like the President and the Minister of Health. And also, when the application was launched, the application was delivered to the Minister of Health via the sheriff. And also to the state attorney, to various places. And for some reason, the government just refused to defend themselves in this court case. So it's essentially almost a default judgment because the state didn't put up any defense whatsoever. And that is, for me, the most important aspect of this entire case. The NHI, my friends, is dead because the state did not want to defend itself under the most important aspects of the NHI. What do you make of this, Byron? Because this is really, no one's talking about it, but it's very weird to me that they refuse to defend themselves.
Well, the DA is talking about it, as I've drawn reference to. So they're talking about it, and they're almost claiming it as a victory, even though, as you very rightly pointed out, was Solidarity that, as per usual, civil society and NGOs have to come to the rescue of the country. But I suppose the only thing that I would say is this is in keeping with a lot of the things though, that we see from the ANC. They allow these things to go to the High Courts. The High Court will say something. Excuse me. They appeal it to the Constitutional Court, and then they actually defend it properly. Is that not a risk?
So it's weird. The government is very open to defending itself and appealing everything during lockdowns, for example, right? Even like cigarettes, like the banning of cigarettes, they won in the High Court. Oh no, we're appealing immediately as the Minister of NDZ, whatever, Duk whatever her
Yeah.
name is. Duk Kop, that's the one. So they appeal those. They put all of their money and their expertise and resources towards fighting bullshit court cases. Let's be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
shoes and open-toed shoes and cigarettes and alcohol and all the rest of that. But for this, the most important policy proposal of the ANC Nasrec conference, which was EWC and the NHI, they
Mm-hmm.
refused to even lift a finger to make it a reality.
Yeah, but that's my point. My point is this not the risk? But this is what the ANC always does. It allows these things to kind of fail in the High Court because it's like, it's just the High Court. And then they take it to the appeal courts and they try to get the judgment like in stone. They try to get it in judgment from the Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court. Is there not a risk that that's actually exactly what they've done? They haven't defended it because they're not going to waste budget. It is a waste of budget. They know they're going to lose it. They're going to go there and they're going to try to get it. And they'll appeal it in the Constitutional Court to try to get it cemented. And then they'll go, there you go. See, it's all fine. And then they'll push ahead.
So I don't think that might be the case. So what Solidarity has done is taken this particular court judgment and have taken it to the
Mm-hmm.
Constitutional Court for them just to vet it to make sure that the judgment is constitutionally
It's
sound.
sound.
And once that happens, then it's over. It's completely over.
Yeah.
There's no appeal to the SCA. There's nothing. It's just sealing this judgment in a constitutional manner in the Constitutional Court. And therefore, I don't see how the state does come back from this. And I haven't seen any forms of appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal for this. And once again, NHI is one of the most important things for the ANC because there's more to steal. And they refuse to defend it, which makes me believe, as we say on this channel, number one, the NHI was always about, let's say, external forces promulgating it in the first place. I mean, the first NHI white paper was funded and
Was
drafted
written
by
by
the
Bill
Bill
Gates.
and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's right.
Yeah.
So if they don't care about this part of the NHI, they don't care about the NHI at all. And therefore, I think it's definitely not going to happen. It's impossible for it to happen if the ANC has so little interest in it. They talk a big game. When it comes to the hard work, they do fuck all, essentially.
Yeah, but again, I love that idea though that if you look at everything that Cyril promised when he came into power, he promised NHR dead, he promised EWC dead, he promised more BEE, which actually, if you recall, I think we did a video on this. The initial voting round that they did in Parliament, the ANC didn't even pitch for, and so basically the bill failed, and then obviously the ANC got their act together, and on a second vote around it, they got it passed. But I mean, even now they're looking at it, and it's like it's a bit iffy, yeah. But it's like everything that Cyril's and that Nasrec conference promised. They were like, these are the key policies. Man, none of them have happened. Every single one has been failed. So, it's something that we said the other day when we looked at that whole, like, I know we did a satire spoof on it about the ANC summoning the ancestors, which is actually something the ANC said. Just for anybody who hasn't watched it, I think it was one of our funnest videos. I enjoyed making it. I think so did you. But ANC's out of ideas, man. Like, what have they got left? Everything they've proposed has died. Like, what exactly could they go through now? They go to the next Nasrec conference. They're going to elect a new leader. What policies could they possibly promote that would be like revolutionary, apart from free market enterprise and freedom for everybody and like almost like a libertarian type policy now? Like that would be revolutionary for the ANC, but everything else has been tried, tested, and failed. So what have they really got left?
Yeah, and even in this judgment, I mean, the court gave costs against the respondents because they just refused to pitch up. And they actually have, you read the judgment, we'll link it below. It's very interesting. And I think a lot of Cyril's policies in the next 2 years will end up this way. They know the game is up. They're going to put more BEE. There's that industry-wide quota system that's going to come into
Yeah,
place
that they're going
quite
to do in
soon.
private sector,
Right.
which is also, by the way, being challenged. I think
Exactly.
Solidarity. Oh, thank God for
Once
Solidarity.
again.
If you haven't subscribed to Solidarity or AfriForum, this is a free show, guys. You don't even need to pay us for it. Just freaking sign up. The
Yeah,
work they do is fantastic.
they really are. But I think this judgment is going to be indicative of how the ANC is going to respond to their most treasured policies they've been banting on about for 20 years. When push comes to shove, they're just not going to go there because they're so tired of ruling this country, and it's becoming really embarrassing for them that there's load shedding
Mm.
and unemployment and riots and all the rest of it. They've given up, my friends. They have really, really given up, and that's my deeply held belief. They've really given up on everything in terms of ruling South Africa, and this is a very important example of that.
So I don't know about you, Ramon, but I'm going to say something that's just my own personal opinion on this, and that is a lot of things that we see going through South Africa at the moment that are some of our most controversial points aren't really being pushed for by the black elite in the ANC. They're being pushed by white libtards that are nothing more than just liberal idiots that want to follow like a globalist, like New World Order type thing. And they're kind of like pushing it. Like the guy, the deputy general, whatever his name is, the guy that's always on TV about the NHI. That's a white libtard. It's not a black ANC guy, and it's not. He's promoting it because he's like, oh, I think this would be a great idea, and everybody's like, yeah, but it doesn't work, and he's like, I don't care, I'm going to enforce it anyway, and you're like, it's not the black elite that's pushing this stuff. So in one respect, I almost have to agree with Juju on this. Like it's white monopoly capital, but it's not white monopoly capital. It's white, lefty, wokey, proper useless libtards that almost hate themselves and their own culture. The ANC is just like, let them get on with it. And it's all failed. The only thing the ANC is interested in is looting and in self-enriching. They don't care about these lefty libtard policies. They don't care about NHI and expropriate. They just care about self-enrichment. And the gravy train has come to an end. So what is
Yep.
there left to do? I mean, there's
Yep.
nothing more to loot.
I mean, the only reason the ANC pushed NHI was because there was a 250 rand billion pot of money there under the
That's it.
Minister of Health, which is a huge
Yep.
amount of patronage for the Minister of Health to use, which is why
Huge.
William Kize wanted it at all costs. He did more for the
Absolutely.
NHI than anyone else as a Minister of Health, predominantly to fund his own campaigns to become president of the ANC, until the Digital Vibe saga took over. But you'll find a lot of legislation that comes through Parliament, especially in the last 15, 20 years. It's all funded by the UN, WHO, foreign NGOs, all that sort of
Yep.
stuff, like FICA and even EWC, e-tolls, for example, was
Yep.
very much a UN thing.
Another UN
NHI,
thing.
very much a Bill and Melinda Gates
Bill
thing.
Gates.
But all
Even
of these
gun control.
things,
George
yeah, oh,
Soros and the
oh
Open
yeah,
Source
gun
Foundation. There
control,
you go.
absolutely. The ANC just tolerates this because it gives them more power and it allows them to loot. But when they see like there
Absolutely.
isn't any merit to it for themselves, they tend to
Well,
not
there's just
follow
nothing
it
to
very
loot.
well.
There's just
Yeah.
nothing to loot. And one of the problems, I know that a lot of people have said this. We did that video on, I think I did a video, it was a 2-minute video on the court case that went against Delamy Zuma on cigarette bans. And she got fined for the cigarette bans because they said, well, she basically made this shit up off the top of her head and it was stupid. And so they fined her. And a lot of the court case that came around that was because the data came from DRSA. And I know a lot of people were like, well, does actually contributing on these things even do anything? Like, do they ever get held accountable? And the key thing is that a lot of these court cases at the moment, they are getting cost orders, but the cost orders aren't being made against the taxpayer. The cost orders are being made against the cabinet ministers directly in their personal capacity for wasting court time. So you got to think of it like if you're Delamy Zuma or the president or even Nkize, like it's a great big personal risk to your own financial pocket to kind of push these policies that frankly you don't really believe in. They just kind of like, as we said, like lefty libtard policies that are being pushed by foreign NGOs. Like, would you really want to sit there and put your neck on the line, especially when the only real thing you're interested in is self-enrichment? You don't get rich by paying court fees, do you? It's like, so
No, you don't. And the archetype for this is Butterbean Dlamini, the former minister, whatever, Women's League
Mm,
chairperson, the one smaller Nyana skeletons. I mean, she got hit by a constitutional court order to pay like a quarter of a court case, whatever, and now she's completely screwed. Like then she was found guilty of perjury later on. She's
yeah.
nowhere to be found anymore. Like it's like a sort
No.
of death stroke to
Yeah.
corrupt bastards.
And then do
So
you remember the court case that came around that, and her saying, "Oh, you can't give me a cost order because I'm only a poor single pensioner on my own, earning 70,000 a month or something," and you're like,
yeah,
"Poor, you're earning 70,000 a month." Like, oh man! But it just
yeah.
shows you how out of touch these people are, and just how much it's just all about looting and self enrichment.
It is. So normally it is about looting self-enrichment, and the NHI was an important vehicle for that. But now, with this court case, with the fact that the government did not put up any defense whatsoever, the NHI is dead, my friends. I'm going to put my neck on the line here and say the NHI will never see the light of day.
Yeah, which is it was a great big positive. It's just disappointing, Ramon, and I know that you agree with me on this, and hopefully our viewers agree with me on this too. But there's a lot of useful idiots in South Africa. I mean, we did a video the other day about Mr. Basson at News 24 being a useful idiot. And for those of you who don't understand the phrase of useful idiot, it came from Stalin. There were lots of apologists, most noticeably the New York Times, coincidentally, who said, oh, the Soviet Russia was a bastion of utopia, even though everybody was starving there. And Stalin called them useful idiots because they would go to the West and almost like push propaganda to say, oh, look how great communism is, even though it was failing. And there's a lot of useful idiots here in South Africa. Like we've seen recently, again, unsurprisingly, News 24 did an article today about pros on gun control following Mr. Basson's useful rant yesterday. And they were like, the first person they went to go get comment from is the Institute of Security Studies, which happens to be part of Gun Free South Africa. In fact, Adele, who runs Gun Free South Africa, works for the Institute of Security Studies. So it's kind of like the same useful idiots keep repeating the narrative. And what they do is they make people think that there's a wider audience at large. There's a
Yeah.
wider will at large that's making these things seem important. But there's no will for it. And NHI is a really good example of that. Like, just like gun control, there's no will for gun control. No matter how much they push it and they say, let's get rid of guns, no matter how much they say, let's have a UK NHS style, like, to quote the intersectionalist, it goes against my lived experience. My lived experience tells me gun control in South Africa, waste of time. My lived experience tells me going to a state hospital, being governed by who cares what pot of money, is bad for your health. Like, you're going to die and it's going to be a disaster. And you can't tell me, no matter how much the ANC are full of their own banana bullcrap, like, you can't tell me they don't know this too. So it's kind of like when you push against it and you stand up and you're like Ian Cameron, you just stand up and you say no. Like, they don't know what to say apart from shut up. Like, what else can they say? There's no comeback.
So, I mean, just to close off, I think it's very important to stand up and say no, but also it is as vitally important to say,
Boost.
very good. Thank you for watching, everyone. See you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop laughing. Say bye.